Art is a high and noble form of human expression. And I've always said that I've been blessed with many blessings, but some of those blessings was being born black and growing up in East Dayton.
Willis Bing Davis grew up on the east side of Dayton, Ohio, in a single-parent household. Along with 5 siblings, he experienced the struggles of a family working together to make ends meet and the love and support of an entire neighborhood.
As I reflect back, growing up here in East Dayton was probably one of the most meaningful things in my total development as a person, because there was so much love in the house and so much love up and down the street and down the alleys, all the neighbors and friends. And the older I get, the more I realize how precious that growing up was, that extended family concept. All these neighbors have disciplined me at one time or another and then taken me home to get more discipline, but I knew it was out of love. But also it was very nurturing. I mean, they found what you could do and they encouraged you and nurtured you in doing it. So I reflect back as growing up here in this environment of these 4 streets and this enclave of African Americans as the most meaningful part of my development.
Bing could see the sacrifices his mother made to maintain their family, and he knew she realized his deep desire to create.
When I think back, what could have happened, because in the first grade, that vital year of the first grade, my parents had a need to separate. So well-meaning neighbors and friends would say to my mother, well, why don't you put those kids, 6 of us now, in Sean Acres, the children's home, because no man's going to come in here and court you with 6 kids. And she said, then I'll just do it by myself. And so she did not remarry until the last child left the house. And she worked 2 jobs, as a maid and as a short order cook, to keep the kids together. And every day telling us, you still can be what you want to be. It's just going to be a little tougher. But also, she didn't know why I liked this stuff called art, but she nurtured it.
Bing Davis knew before he could even express his thoughts that art was going to be a major part of his life. By the time he was at Washington Elementary School, he had the self-confidence to tell everyone who asked him that he was going to be an artist.
I knew I was an artist in elementary school. Matter of fact, you know how friends with teachers says, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And friends would give the normal things like, I want to be a lawyer, a doctor, I want to be a football player, I want to be a nurse, a beautician. And I could stand up in the 5th grade and say, I want to be an artist. I want to be an artist. I just knew it. And the reason why is because when I was making things, out here on the porch, sitting on the sidewalk, just drawing on the sidewalk, sketching, I was happy. Nothing gave me more inner satisfaction than when I was creating something. And so I knew that I wanted to be happy. And I knew that somehow it had to be somehow related to art.
All through high school, this artist was known as an athlete. He honed his skills playing basketball at the Neighborhood Recreation Center and later at Wilbur Wright High School. It was in high school that he was named All-City in both basketball and track. It's not only the sport that he remembers, it's the discipline also.
Just like art, I was totally committed. I played and practiced every day. It was out of here that I became an all-city basketball player by the time I was a sophomore in high school and made all-city all 3 years. It was here that I learned under Coach Dooley, and then I would take things home to practice with. When we came up here, I had the same route I walked for 4 years, but I would carry the crossbar home. So from my sophomore year until I graduated as a senior, I had the city high jump record here. So most of the people who didn't know me knew me as an athlete. Those who knew me knew I also was an artist and that was paramount in my voice.
During this time period, artistically, Bing was drawing, painting, and creating sculptures. and he was also introduced to a few new concepts.
This is where I was introduced to ceramics, working with clay, working with mobiles and collages. We had a really good art program here, really good. And it took living and going someplace else to realize what we were exposed to here. And it came, I think, from the interest of the arts that J. Willie Holmes, this principal, had. He would make analogies, use the art for proverbs. He would teach with the art. He'd ask if you saw this piece, and he was continually getting other pieces and coming in, but also bringing in artists.
When it was time for college, Bing's coach encouraged him to attend DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. At DePaul, his athletic abilities earned him all-conference recognition, but art had become an equal focus in his life. Bing returned to Dayton after graduation and began a teaching career that would last 40-plus years.
My inspiration comes from a variety of places, not only just the basic language of art in terms of lines, shapes, and colors and designs that I respond to from art, but also from all around my community and where I go and what I see, but also from music and from dance. And certainly, I make an effort to tie in my tremendous love and appreciation for traditional African art and culture. For example, what I'm working on now is part of a series called Ancestral Spirit Dance Series. And I pulled shapes and patterns out of African textiles that I'll blend with my urban experience in terms of the improvisation and the abstraction that normally is seen and just the gaiety of color and form. It takes, like a piece of music, I'm building up the composition, so I'm dealing with breaking up the space that I'm working on in terms of interesting shapes and colors with normally about 3 rhythms occurring. So I've set up a rhythm that relates to music and relates to dance in terms of this pattern and this pattern, but I'll also set up a 3rd pattern. And each of the patterns are sort of superimposed over each other, sort of like a piece of music where you hear the drum and the violin and you hear the saxophone and you hear all the instruments that are playing, and each one playing the same tune but coming up with a different rhythm. That's that polyrhythmic quality that is so integral to black music that I try to tap into.
The first teaching assignment for Bing was at Colonel White High School in Dayton, where he made an immediate connection with students. He was a Pied Piper with a personality and teaching style that attracted students. Early in his career, he says he stopped teaching art and began teaching people.
My first teaching job was in 1960 here at Colonel White High School in Dayton, Ohio. And this was a direct result of my high school experience. As a sophomore in high school, Wilbur Wright, the principal, Mr. J. Willie Holmes, called me in and said, if you straighten up, quit cutting class, get on your P's and Q's, when you graduate in '59, you'll be able to come back to Wilbur Wright High School and coach basketball and teach art. And I thought it was just a ploy to get me to just work a little harder in school, and it was, and it worked. I found that I loved working with people, and while I enjoyed the times I had in coaching little kids in basketball and track and things of that nature, I found I could get the same kind of results using art as a tool. And besides, in coaching basketball, you would maybe reach 5, maybe 6 people. But in art, I reached maybe 60s and hundreds at a time because art was more accessible than the athletic varsity team. And I found I was getting the same results. It was all about just learning how to help people, and art became the tool, and the youth was the primary concern.
I have known Bing since I was a little girl, and he first captured my attention over at the Living Arts Center. My mom was a teacher in Dayton at the time and took a class over to the Living Arts Center, and I got to go along. And that was my first encounter with him. And what a wonderful art teacher person that he happened to be.
It was 7 years of teaching at Colonel White High School for Bing. He earned his master's from Miami University at night and during the summer, and he continued to develop artistically.
Here at Colonel White, while I was a teacher, I began to develop techniques and processes and projects that students could make and based upon their experience in terms of art. But at the same time, I would continue those same techniques, working in clay, in jewelry making, in painting, in fabrics and textiles and weavings and silkscreen, and things I was teaching my students, I was continuing to develop as a professional. And so much of what I'm doing now, 40-some years later, began right here in room 318 at Colonel White High School. The techniques of pottery, the drawings, even the social consciousness that I put into my work began right here. Because if you remember the 60s, what that was like, that I was having my work address what I was seeing in the streets, in the nation, and in the world. And all of it began right here.
In the late 1990s, the community, along with the arts program and the priority board, commissioned Bing to design and create a mural. Along with a group of students, he created the piece that stands in front of the school today. It's a part of the Ancestral Spirit Dance series.
My Ancestral Spirit Dance series is about remembering and celebrating ancestors, those on whose shoulders we stand. But also it's about celebrating personal interests. So while I created the body of the work here, in the spirit of the Spirit Dance, the young people I was working here at Colonel White's, which was from many diverse cultural groups, created a border based on their interests. Not only those who were interested in African symbolism, like the African symbol that one of the students did that talks about no one is greater than God. Another student was very much interested in baseball, so he was able to incorporate baseball into that image form. Another student was interested in the drama experience that he or she had had here, and so you see the dramatic faces. So the students reflected some of their culture and some of their background in this effort, which was a group effort to create a mural that would stand forever as a memento of the school's being a school for the arts and also the young people working with me as a professional artist.
In the latter part of the 60s, Bing became art director for the Living Arts Center, a professional move that would have a profound effect on his career. The Living Arts Center was an experimental educational program within the Dayton schools. Music, drama, dance, visual arts, and creative writing were all taught in a collaborative environment in a converted 19th century warehouse.
As you can see, I'm further along in the development of this particular piece of the Ancestral Spirit Dance series. And it's still building up. I'm just playing tunes and playing music, if you would. Because what I'm doing is trying to create a space for this piece to exist. So I want the illusion, the look that there's things happening in front and back and in the middle ground, foreground, background, middle ground. And by how I treat these pieces, I can make them occupy that space. But I view them as melodies and rhythms. Each one is distinct, but yet they're all working on playing the same tune that's going to come together near the end. The shapes and colors that I select, the composition that I break up, is all a part of that creative process. But in the process of getting started, I stay in tune with the work, because once I get to a certain point, the piece begins to talk to me too and tell me how it should go. And what I'm doing there is relating to the one color to another, one shape to another, one form to another. Keeping in mind the overall tune. I'm hearing music as I'm working. I'm hearing these melodies. I'm seeing these melodies all around me. I'm seeing these shapes. But it all is about the same song, the same dance, the same spirit. Much of the beginning process is just physical labor. I have the vision and an idea in mind of what I want to do, but it takes time to build up to that. You just don't get to the end and play the crescendo to start off the concert, but you're building up. And so I accept that deliberate patience of working to build up the piece. If you would, underpainting, laying colors underneath that's going to affect what's going to be laying on top. I'm continually going from one rhythm to the other to try to keep them relating together, and I can do that in terms of the intensity or the lightness or the darkness. I can do that in terms of visual texture or actual texture, but it's all, for me, a part of the same form that I'm looking forward to the joy of getting to the point where you can step out as a solo and begin to tie all these rhythms together.
Over the years, Bing has had many opportunities to move beyond the walls of Dayton, Ohio, but he's kept his feet firmly planted in this area, working at Miami University in Oxford, and most notably as professor and chair of the art department at Central State University, where he remained until retirement in 1998. Bing continues to participate in workshops and seminars in and around the area. One in particular is the annual Reach Across Dayton series. The 1998 series celebrated the similarities between African American and Appalachian cultures. Middle school and high school students were all challenged to tap into their artistic abilities. In April of 1997, the Dayton Visual Arts Center recognized Bing for his artistic achievement in a series of exhibits in the downtown Dayton area. This exhibit was the largest of Bing's work and displayed over 200 pieces. The pieces are a clear reminder of Bing's strong African ancestral influence.
That's just imagination. You can see it's just about finished. The piece will let me know when it's finished. But this is the joyous part of creating, because now I'm taking all that slow, painstaking build-up of creating a composition, and now I'm trying to make it all one piece. And if you can envision these rhythms and melodies occurring in the background, now I get to step out, and just like a jazz musician, I have a solo. But what I'm using are the colors and the shapes and the energy of the melodies to do the solo. And I want the illusion that as you step out to do that solo, you're still reminiscent of the melody that you've been playing, but at the same time it's distinct enough to tie in what I call the African with the urban. That jazzy improvisation, intuitive way of expressing, using the same colors and shapes that I use to create the background and the pattern to do the solo. So it's still the same tune, but it's interpreted in a more modern and contemporary way. And so as an artist, and visually what I'm trying to do is to make this piece one, unify it into one piece so those distinct components are not separate, but all a part of the same form. So when a viewer looks at it, they feel it more so than try to analyze what makes it up. And that's what I want to happen. And so all of the work of planning and designing and composing was to get to the fun part of what it feels when all these rhythms are occurring at the same time, when all the dances are occurring at the same time, when all the colors are occurring at the same time. And it's really unique, even if it were a representational figure or a landscape or a still life. The approach is still pretty much the same. You just would recognize that fruit or the bowl or the tree. But here I've used that same visual language to create more of a feeling and a thought that's inside me. So in creating, I go deep inside to try to come up with my way of seeing the world, of responding to things around me, and giving my expression of it. That's the joy, and in the process of doing it, I'm thinking of the next opportunity to have that same feeling of expressing oneself in a very unique and personal way, drawing upon one's experiences, one's experiences in life, one's vision, one's dream, one's whole experience to society.
In the late 1990s, Bing was honored by having the street where he grew up named after him.
When I see the sign, it just gives me a good feeling, but it also gives me a humbling feeling because of the purpose and the function of it. It's almost embarrassing to still be alive and drive around and see it, but it gives me a great feeling because I knew what it meant to all the people who made it happen, and that they were proud and pleased and appreciated what I attempted to do in terms of sharing and giving, that they wanted to be a part of that by helping to acknowledge me. It's a wonderful feeling, and I still can't believe that it happened in my lifetime.
The reputation of Bing as an artist and educator extends far beyond the boundaries of Dayton. He has traveled extensively 10 times to Africa alone, among other places. His work is owned by countless notables domestically and internationally, and his recognitions are abundant. One of the ultimate recognitions for Bing was in January of 2002. The Dayton chapter of the Lynx Incorporated commissioned him to prepare a piece that will permanently hang in the Dayton Art Institute. Drawing from his inspiration, family, friends, and the world around him, a world-renowned artist, Willis Bing Davis.
I'm Bing Davis, and to me, art is the best way I know to express the joy of being alive. It also is the way I express what I experience in life, what I see, what I feel, what I hear, all around me. And it also is the way I celebrate the African and African-American experience.